Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. Today we're going to talk about some C8 Corvettes that were recently spotted testing in Colorado, ranging from a hybrid version all the way up to a possible ZR1. Alright guys, so as usual, this information is coming to us from the CorvetteBlogger.com. A couple different C8 Corvettes were recently spotted testing in Colorado. So as of September 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and just recently, as of the 20th of September, these things have been spotted running around Colorado. Like I said, we have some pictures suggesting they are testing the hybrid C8 Corvettes, the Z06 C8 Corvettes, and even possibly a ZR1 or Zora C8 Corvette being tested in the high altitudes of Colorado. And the best part, we actually have a little bit of video footage that some guys got us from the side of the road, just kind of showing the cars doing their thing. One of which you can actually clearly hear the Z06 exhaust, and definitely tell it is not your normal V8. But we'll get into all that in a second. Let's go over a couple of the details that Corvette Blogger gives us first. So as of September 16th, Corvette Blogger says that a test fleet of heavily camouflaged C8 Corvettes has been seen leaving the parking lot of a Denver, Colorado hotel that morning. Apparently someone shared that photo with TFLcar.com, which we'll get a little bit more into in a second, because TFL is actually the ones that think that the cars spotted were ZR1s. Even CorvetteBlogger.com goes on to say that some of the wrapped up test cars appear to be upcoming Z06 or ZR1 models. As you guys know, because of all of the happenings in the world today, the pandemic, everything going on, the release dates for the C8 Corvette performance models have been changed a little bit. Originally, the 2021 car was supposed to bring the Z06, but now that has been pushed back to a possible 2022, with the Grand Sport following that, and then the ZR1 following the Grand Sport. And then ultimately, possibly the 1,000 horsepower Zora model being the final C8 to make its appearance. All right, guys, so we're going to take a break from the action real quick to mention today's sponsor, and it is going to be Ridge Wallet. I've talked about them a couple times before, guys, but it's a real nice carbon fiber updated wallet. Allows you to carry your cash on the back with a money clip or a money band that will hold it, as well as hold up to 12 of your cards. As guys, we typically carry a bunch of crap in our wallet that we don't really need, and this really helps eliminate the mess. Now, this will hold your debit cards, credit cards, and even your identification, your driver's licenses, things like that. If you're interested in something like this, guys, definitely check out the description down below. I will put the 10% off coupon down there. You can save some money on these just for being a horsepower obsessed fan. TFL Cars goes on to talk about the fact that they believe it is going to be the 5.5 liter flat plane crank V8 engine that will power the Z06 and the ZR1. We've talked about that 100 times on this channel. This flat plane crank rumor for the Z06 has been a rumor for almost a year at this point, so it is very likely that car is getting a flat plane crank. The only thing that has not been so much confirmed is whether or not it will be twin turbocharged. But even this article goes on to talk about the Z06 likely being naturally aspirated and leaving the twin turbos for the ZR1. TFL Car actually posted a little teaser on their Twitter account saying, "What's GM hiding? At least 10 Chevy Corvette Z06/ZR1 test cars spotted in the wild." And they put up this picture pointing to 4 different cars that they believe are ZR1s. Now, I can see what they're looking at here because that particular set of cars are noticeably wider than any of the other C8s that they're parked to. So the ZR1 is typically your top of the line, top dog, King Corvette. And in order to hold that place as King Corvette, that typically means highest horsepower, widest possible, largest amounts of aero, typically a bunch of carbon fiber, so all that stuff is covered under these car covers to prevent any onlookers from knowing those are not your typical C8s. There has also been a new sheet leaked showing what possible power plants and horsepower numbers we could get for upcoming C8 Corvettes. This particular document shows that 2022 we're going to get a Corvette Z06 with, of course, that flat plane crank 5.5 liter engine, but it's showing a 600 horsepower estimate and a 470 foot-pounds of torque estimate. That sounds very much so naturally aspirated and almost kind of disappointing. Now, I want to make it clear, we live in a day and age where 600 horsepower is kind of disappointing, but at the same time, the changes that the C8 architecture brings to the table leaves us not needing as much horsepower. I know you're on a channel that is called Horsepower Obsessed, and I'm talking about the fact that these cars don't necessarily need a massive amount of horsepower. It sounds backwards, but the C7 Corvette Z06 having 650 and then moving on to the C8 Z06 only having 600 sounds like a downgrade, but in reality it's really not. Matched with a dual clutch transmission, 600 horsepower is going to be massive in a car like this, especially one that is rumored to have an RPM redline of 9,000. So that could definitely get interesting really quick. But anyway, moving on, 2023 brings us a Corvette Grand Sport C8, which of course is going to have a very similar LT2 6.2 liter engine that the base model C8 has. The only difference is we get the hybrid motor driving the front wheels. So that gives us, again, 600 horsepower, but this time we get 500 foot-pounds of torque, which is 30 more than the C8 Z06 offers. This is where things get a little hairy for me because it's not like Chevy to bring out a Grand Sport, which would technically cost less than a Z06, but give it more power. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Even though it's power delivered in a different way, I guess it's possible, but still it just doesn't seem likely. In 2024, we get the LT7 engine for the Corvette ZR1. It is a twin turbo dual overhead cam, same 5.5 liter, possibly flat plane crank that we saw in the Z06. This one is going to have 850 horsepower and 825 pound-feet of torque. Now that is absolutely mind-blowing considering that is not a hybrid setup. So the ZR1 is not going to have a hybrid front motor driving the front wheels, giving it kind of an all-wheel drive setup, or so this sheet indicates at least. If that's the case, that 850 horsepower is all engine, all twin turbo, nothing else. That's pretty crazy. But the craziness doesn't stop there. 2025, we're gonna get the LT7 HP1, which is definitely an interesting engine name. That is gonna give us the same 5.5 liter twin turbo dual overhead cam engine with the front hybrid setup as well. So now we're talking about 1,000 horsepower with all-wheel drive and a hybrid motor driving the front wheels. 975 pound-feet of torque, and that is gonna be called the Corvette Zora. Very, very, very likely to see all this stuff, guys, because these things have been rumored for over a year now. Over a year ago, I was talking to you about the Corvette Zora and how it was going to be 1,000 horsepower. Now here we are a year later, literally clearing up some of these rumors with supposedly leaked documents from GM saying the same thing. It's absolutely insane, but it's really looking like it's going to happen. I can't even imagine what the C8 Corvette would be like with 1,000 horsepower, because it's already a monster with 495. It barely even makes sense. And finally, on September 20th, we had some pictures taken of these test cars in the hotel parking lot later at night when the drivers were not around. Some of the cars still had the covers on them, to me indicating that the ones covered have something more to possibly reveal, whereas the other ones are just covered with your typical camo, but interestingly still have the rear glass covered with camo as well, because they don't want you to see what is in that engine bay. Obviously it is something different, or else why would they cover it? So the cars that remain fully covered overnight really seem like they're holding something really precious back, something that GM really doesn't want us to see just yet, and I'm intrigued. In all of the testing happening in Colorado, of course, the Corvette C8 Z06 running around with that center exit exhaust was spotted again, and it sounds very interesting. Take a listen to this.
September 19th, Logan, Colorado. Different C8. This one's mid-pipe. I don't know if you can quite see it. We're going to show you. Oh my God.
Now, along with the exhaust, there were some other C8 Z06s that got their picture taken, and they're rocking a very interesting side skirt. This is definitely a completely different side skirt than we've seen on a C8 Corvette before. It actually looks a lot like the side skirts on the Z06 and ZR1 C7, but it's definitely different. So if they are in fact testing C8 Z06s, it looks like they could possibly come with completely different aero as well. Definitely interesting stuff, guys. I cannot wait for the C8 Z06. I really think that that is going to be the best bang for the buck, just like it was for the C7 generation, and pretty much as far back as I can recall. So the C8 Z06 is very likely to take us all by storm. It is going to be an absolute beast. I can't wait to see this car, flat plane crank or not. The car is going to be awesome. It's going to give us all the aero we want and just basically take anything that people complained about with the C8 Corvette base model and improve on it. It's going to be an awesome car, and that is just the beginning of the performance model. So the ZR1 and the Zora are going to take it to another level entirely. These cars are going to be absolutely insane. I can't wait to see these things on the road. But with that said, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. So if you liked what you saw, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions about any of the C8 content, go ahead and shoot them in the comments section down below. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm going to have loads of C8 and C7 content coming you are not going to want to miss. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next upload.